So, thank you guys for being here, and this is the introduction to Bash Shell script. All right, so let me go ahead and start. Okay, so before I start doing all the setups and everything here, let me just give you a quick talk. And I hope you guys understand that a terminal is just a terminal, right? If you're using Visual Studio, if you're using your command line, your CLI, whether you're using Windows or Macs, it doesn't really matter. Even if it's Ubuntu, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. A terminal is a terminal, right? You can SSH. You just need the command line, okay? All right. So today we're talking about this subject called Bash shell scripting. First we need to define what is a script. What is scripting, right? In terms of computers or Linux, to be more precise. Well, the thing is, for most things that you do in IT, you want to make sure they are automated, meaning they are not done manually. So the goal really for today's engineering, or to be a really good engineer nowadays, is to be able to make things automated. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it being lazy or whatever. But the thing is, we want to make sure things are uh, less manual, right? As less manual as possible, right? Literally everything should be automated. At least whatever you can make automated, go ahead and do it, right? Literally from creating a user to whatever it is, okay? Um, and those are usually for very important tasks. It doesn't really matter what the task is, right? And pretty much in a simple way of explaining this, right? A script will be a succession of commands, right? Um, and there's a whole bunch of things that can go into a script, right? It can be more than just a bunch of commands that you lined up, right? But the goal of a script is to achieve something that can be done manually, but to make it automated, right? So now you need to understand that you have many sorts of scripts, right? There's just a script, and now there's the language, right? You have JavaScript, you have Python scripts, you have a YAML script if you know the tool that we call Ansible. If you've heard about Docker, you need to know how to write in YAML language or format. You have a JSON script if you know anything about the cloud, right? AWS, all the IAM policies, and Terraform. If you know the tool called Terraform, you need to be pretty good at JSON scripting or JSON format in general, right? But a script is a script, meaning an, an automation, a way to automate things, right? Um, and again, I don't want to get into these other tools such as Terraform and stuff like that because the topic of the day is Bash specifically, right? Bash shell specifically. So we're gonna dive into it. So now that you know what a script is and what is the need for a script, let's go ahead and start. Actually, today we're gonna write our first script, and today you're gonna learn a lot. And this is just introduction to scripting, so I'm not gonna go too deep on this video. I'm trying to make as many videos or sessions as possible to talk about these topics, right? And you can get back to me, ask me questions through the WhatsApp group chat, or you can email me or whatever, right? So let me go ahead and start digging into the real stuff here. And by the way, if you like this terminal, it's a terminal for Macs. I don't think this can work on Windows, but you can just go on Google and look up terminals, or CLI terminals for Windows if that's what you're using, right? And one of the most, if I can say the most used one or the most famous will be Visual Studio that works on both Macs and Windows. So that's up to you. Me, I don't know. I like Visual Studio for editing because it has a whole bunch of extensions, especially when you start actually diving into other scripts formats, right? Terraform, Docker, stuff like that, right? And again, if you don't know what that is, it's okay, right? But as far as like just the terminal for Linux stuff, I like to use something a little different. I don't know. It's just me. So it's a preference thing, okay? Don't feel like you have to use this, right? Okay. So if you've been with me, if you're watching this video, I don't know whether it's on YouTube or you've been with me throughout the Zoom call, you should know how to deploy a server using Vagrant, for example. That's the easiest way to deploy a server, right? Because, in order for us to do these labs and to start working, you need to have a server, right? A Linux server, and then SSH into that server and start working, right? So if you don't know how to do that, I would advise you to watch my other videos where I explain how to deploy a server with Vagrant, right? A Linux server with Vagrant. And if you've been with me for quite some times, you should know how to SSH and log in and and stuff like that, right? And yeah, so let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so obviously here I'm just on the terminal on the computer here. Let me make this the font a little bigger. Okay, so I'm just on my computer, right? I'm not really logged in into any Linux server. So let me go ahead and grab a server, deploy a server, and then SSH into it, right? Me personally, I will go ahead and use something. I'll go ahead and use a server from AWS. You don't need to know what AWS is. If you do, then great. If you don't, don't worry about it, right? It doesn't matter where you get your servers from, right? That's like just get whatever server and start working. Okay, so wherever you're getting your server, that's up to you, but I'm gonna go ahead and get a server from here, right? Okay, so let me do this real fast. And again, you don't need to know AWS or whatever, right? Um, I want a Red Hat server. I'm not gonna go too deep on the details here, honestly. I don't need much. I don't need none of this here. Okay, something real fast. Again, wherever you're getting your server from, if it's taking time, you can pause this video and get your server ready and stuff. You don't need to be pressed by me, right? If you're getting a server that you deploy with Vagrant, if you're getting from Linode, it does not matter, right? Just get a server. And of course, this is not a Linux essential. If you're watching this, you should have some knowledge about Linux already, right? So again, this is not the first video I'll advise someone who just got into Linux to watch. All right, so let me go ahead and SSH. Oh, before I do that, I need to be on the where the key pair is. There you go. Mm, mm, okay. Okay. So so here I am, and let me go sudo. All right, so I'm becoming root, right? The sudo user. Okay, great. So the way I like to study, or the way I like to teach anything, or the way I think anybody should be studying for anything in general is by practicing, right, with a real life scenario. Because remember, we're not just learning how to. I mean, if you're learning Linux or these automation stuff for fun, then I mean, great. So you do whatever you want, right? But most people watch these videos to either get a job or to be better at work. But there's always a professional reason, right? It's not just it's the weekend. Let me learn Linux, and let me learn bash scripting, right? Um, so that's why I prefer teaching with actual stuff, right? Like real work stuff, right? But since this is introduction to the thing, I'm gonna go ahead and this video is probably we're probably not gonna use an actual. Well, I mean, we're gonna use an actual scenario, right? But it's gonna be a lot of talk, regarding the basic stuff, right? And then we're gonna do something that you can actually do at work, at least something that can be put into the introduction of this thing, right? Okay, so first thing you need to know regarding scripting, I already explained to you what scripting is, right? But in terms of bash scripting, right? So any sort of scripts, pretty much, of course, you need to create a file, right? And if you know Linux, right, touch, let's call this demo, right? Demo. But one thing you need to do, I mean, is it a need? Do you need to do this? I wouldn't say you need to. It will still work, but you should do this. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the extension, right? So if you're using Windows, if you're using any sort of any operating system, right? If you're looking at a PDF file, it's usually the name of the file .pdf. If you're looking at an MP4 file, right, in audio, it's usually the name of the audio .mp MP3, MP4, whatever, right? So the extension, right? TXT for text, right? So that when you look at the file, you know what type of file it is, right? So it's the same thing. When you create a file, you need to put the extension, right? So in this case, we're writing it's gonna be a bash shell script, right? If this was a Python script, it will be .py. If this was a basic text script, it would be not a basic text file, right? TXT, right? If and so on and so on, MP4, whatever, right? Right? But in this case, we're trying to have a shell script, right? So it's gonna be sh. This is gonna be the extension, right? ls, right? So here we are. We created that, and some people will go, and it's not some people. You might want to give the permission, the execute permission to that file, right? And the way to give the execute permission will be chmod plus x and then the following question, right? When you do ll to list and see the permission, you can see it here. You know, you've given execute permission to the root user. I mean, of course, right? To the actual user, which is the root right now, to the group, and to everybody else, right? And also another way to see, I think this command, uh, is it this command? Let me see. I usually have this very nice command that usually help me to oops, to see information regarding okay, let me see here. I must be typing it wrong, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. But again, you don't really need to give execute command. And I'm gonna tell you why we even do the execute command. So when you create this file, right, and you do ls, you see how the color changed, right? You see how now it looks green, right? It's because you gave that execute command. It becomes green. For example, if I create a directory, right? Let's say make dir test, for example. Oops, make dir test, for example. Say ls. You see, and as I create a regular thing, text, I even put it .sh. I say, you see the difference? So when you give execute command, you know, it goes into green. You know, it's a nice way to kind of know what you're looking at, right? So yeah, it's good practice to give that execute command, but you don't have to, right? Because when you give the execute command and then you want to run the script, you have to do dot forward slash dot, and I might even be wrong because I never used the execute command, and I'm gonna tell you why I never use the execute command. Cause really, to run a bash script, you just do bash and then the name of the script. Really, it's gonna run, right? But yep. So that's up to you. But remember, as long as you put bash in front of it, it's always gonna run anyway. Okay, so now that we created the file and we gave it execute permission to kind of run this thing, right? Now let's go ahead and create an actual script. But before we get into creating an actual script for an actual a real life situation, still need to teach you some basics regarding scripting or I would say coding in general, right? When it comes to writing a code, and you might be like, oh, writing a code, are we coding? Is this programming? I think there's a difference between programming. I mean, no, no. Is there a difference between programming and coding? Hmm. I don't know, but there's a way to go by it. I think if you, I think you need to code to write a program, something like that. I'm not a software engineer, so I might be wrong. But in any case, it's not really coding. I mean, yes, it is a code. Every code or program or script. Remember what I told you, a script is just a way to automate something, right? So technically, yeah, it's a code, but it's not really, you're not a software developer here, okay? So don't panic, okay? So just let's go ahead and VI, to edit the file. You can use Vim if your server has Vim installed. Let's see, do we have Vim on this server? Apparently we don't. Let's go ahead and install Vim. If you're using a Red Hat, it should be yum install, right? If you're using Ubuntu, it's apt-get install. So give it a second to install here. Getting it from the yum repository. Let's watch it go. Let me get a sip of coffee here. Alright, cool. So we have Vim installed. And again, if you use Nano, whatever you want to use, right? It's up to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and start editing this file and start writing the script. Let me get the fonts even bigger. I for insert, so we can start writing the script. Okay, so the first thing you would do whenever you start writing a script in general. For example, and again, I know this is bash scripting. If you know anything about YAML scripting, right, you don't need to know. Right? You usually start with the three dashes. I'm not sure what you start with Python. So far, I'm only experienced or good with and YAML and Bash and a bit of JSON. I haven't written any JSON scripts for any Terraform situation in a while, but in any case, when it comes to Bash scripting, the first line for it, like this should be automated. Like this should be second nature whenever you're writing a script, right? Before you even start running your brain, you do this, right? You start with a line we call the shebang, right? So this is how the shebang looks like. So pound sign, exclamation point, forward slash bin, forward slash bash. Okay? This is where you should always start this is how we start, right? Okay, so now that we have that, this is we actually starting right now. And if you know anything about writing some kind of code, right? Whenever you have a pound sign, whatever you put after this, hey, this is about learning PowerShell scripting. So whatever you put after the the pound sign, right? Whatever you put after the pound sign, it's a pretty much it's a comment, right? Meaning when you run the script, right, whatever it's after the pound sign, it's not gonna be written, right? Um, but this is not a comment. This is different. This is the shebang. Okay, so this is not, and then don't worry, the computer will know. Okay, so just letting you know right now. Okay, so as we're learning about these basic stuff regarding scripting, right? We're gonna go ahead and write a basic script here to learn this thing real fast, right? Okay, so and the deeper, the more we go into scripting, the more I would teach other stuff, right? Um, so, but these things, I would call them basics. Like you need to know this. This is like the foundation for, So, but the more advanced and more complicated automation you want to do, then we're gonna go deeper, right? So, the first thing I like to talk about is obviously the display command, right? So there are certain commands that you really need to know. I mean, you have to. I don't know how you write a script without that. I mean, you can write a script without that. Like I said, a script is just a set of commands. It doesn't matter what you put in there as long as we get to the goal, right? Um, but yeah, these are some basics you need to know. So first thing I want us to learn about is the echo command. So echo command, what does that do? So when you say echo space and then double quote, whatever you put into the double quotes are going to be displayed when you run your script. And let's try something. Hey, this is just a test. my friend, my friends actually. Pop, pop, pop. You see, my this is just a test, my friends. Okay, so escape button colon WQ. Boom, we saved it, right? Clear. Like I said, you can do bash, or in this case, since we gave it execute permission, we can do forward slash x dot and then that's sh. Run this. Oops. I'm sorry, I must have. See, that's why I never use this. Okay, there you go. So dot forward slash, and then the name of the script, right? Or we could have just used again. That's why I always use bash, so I don't have to remember to give the execute permission, right? Bash, and then boom. As you can see, you remember where this is coming. This was coming from, right? This is coming from the echo command, right? So if we go back to our script, here's our command echo. And this is what's going to be displayed on the command line when you run the script. Let's run it again, right? So let's add something there, right? Let's make it more interesting. Boom, boom, boom. Echo. This is the second line. Boom. This is the second line. Escape colon WQ. Boom. Let's run this. Boom. You see? This is what the echo command does. You see what I'm saying? All right. So let's get back in there. Let me show you another way to use the echo command, right? Um, let's get back there. Oops. All right. So another way to use the echo command. Let's say, I mean, I don't know if you notice, but there is a space in between those lines, these two lines, right? But you notice when I ran it on when I ran the script, there wasn't any space between the two lines actually, right? So because I mean here you can see the space, but there's actually not a space. If you want to put spaces in between, you can actually still use echo, right? And now you will see the space. Hash, you see the space? There you go. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with echo, to be honest. And if you know anything about Linux, there's this thing called manual, right? If you want to know things about a command, any informations about the command, you know, what is the command about, how to use the command, and everything you want to know regarding that command, right? You go into something called the manual. So man, and this command, we're talking about echo command, right? Man, echo, boom. It tells you what the command is, what other arguments you can use, you know. And then, yeah, you can look at this and start a study, for example, right? And do a whole bunch of stuff, right? And these are things that I like people to go and do it themselves. But I'm gonna do one or two here, right? So you can actually see how clever the echo command can be, right? So let's use, which one do we want to take here? Let's try, let's try this here, right? And it says if dash E is in effect, the following sequences are recognized. Okay, cool. Let's use the for, backslash E and then the V and then see. Let's just see what happens, right? I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's just see. Let's just see what is gonna happen. You need to add the dash E. Let's see. What if I put no space here and I put the forward slash E? What's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna happen. Save this. Run it. Let's see what's gonna happen. Oh, this. Okay. It's actually not what I wanted. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to the man command and see what was supposed to happen. Da, 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 da. E escape. Okay. Let me go back there. This, it looks like it took away the I for some reason. Anyway, let's see how else we can use this. And again, you can play around with this all day, right? It doesn't mean you have to use it or even know or whatever. You can play around with this all day. Let's see what this is gonna do. This is just a, oh, Okay, apparently it took away the T. Just like here, it took away the I after the S. I don't know if you notice. You see? So I'm not too sure why you will use this. Again, it's up to you, whatever script you're writing, right? So let's use this other one called with the T. Let's see what's gonna happen with this one. Oh, you see the space here? Remember what they say about the T? Horizontal tab. Okay, they weren't lying. The manual is never lying. Okay, so let's go and get the, what was it? Was it V? Let's try V. Let's run it. Oh, you see? Vertical space or tab, right? So a whole bunch of stuff that you can use, right? So remember, the manual command is your friend. All right. So now that we talked a little bit about echo, um, also there's another thing that's pretty nice to use is the sleep command. For example, let's say you want the script to do the first line and then to wait for let's say 10 seconds and then let's say 3 seconds before it jumps and do the second command, right? So let's say you want it, so the first command here is we want the echo this, and then the second command here is to echo this, right? But let's say we don't want these two to show up at the same time. Let's say we want this to show up first, right? I mean, of course it's going to show up first, right? But before this shows up, we want a timing, some sort of a like a timer. Let's give 5 seconds in between, right? This is when you do sleep 5. If you want it 4 seconds, 4. If you want it 20 seconds, you do the 20, and so on and so on. Let's do 3 seconds, all right? Save it. Let's go back, bash, run. 1, 2, 3. There you go. So let's say, of course, you can always use the clear command, right, to clear the screen, right? So let's say after showing this first command, you want to clear the screen and only this command shows up, right? And you want to do it in. So you say, I want the first command to be read, right? People can read it, give them 3 seconds to read it, and then clear it, and then show the next command, give them another 3 seconds to read it before the script is ends, right? Okay, let's run this. Hey, this is the in the there you go. 1, 2, 3. There you go. By the way, that was French. If you were like, oh, what was that? So, yep. Okay, cool. So I'm pretty sure we know enough, right? So now that we know this, great, another great foundation, something you must know if you ever written any sort of code, is what we call a variable, right? Variables, very important, right? If you know anything about Linux, Linux has this thing called environmental variables, right? So meaning, let me talk about what is a variable first. Let me not jump the gun here. Okay, what is a variable? Well, a variable is anything that has a value first, but in coding environment, basically anything that has a value, yes, but a value that can change, right? Depending on, we can set the value, we can make the script interactive, and whatever input that whoever's running the script inputs can go into that value and do whatever we want. Look, okay, let me start with the basic stuff, right? So the way you declare a variable, let's say for example, right? Let me clear all this. All right, so let's say I wanna, let me show you an example of how a variable works, right? Let's declare or create a variable called name in our script, right? Let's say name, right? Let's give a value to name. Let's give this value, let's say Jack, right? And then let's say echo hello, I think your name is, what do you think we're gonna put here? name? No. To call the variable, we're going to use the dollar sign name. So what's going to happen is that it's not going to show, hello, I think your name is dollar sign name. It's going to show the value of this variable. What is the value of this variable? It's Jack, right? We declare the variable called name. So the variable here is name, and the value of the variable name is Jack. So what do you think is going to show when we run the script? Jack, right? Okay, so let's do this. Boom, boom, boom. Hello, I think your name is Jack. There you go, right? So let me show you another way of using this. There's plenty of ways to use variables actually. It can be a whole, and I just don't want to make this video too long because it could be a whole video about variable instead, right? I will certainly make a bunch of videos regarding variables only. If you want it, let me know. But you can dive deep and do so much more research regarding variables, right? You can use variables for math, right? You can use variables for so many things, right? I think you can use variables for let's see something. Let's try to make some kind of calculator. I usually don't use shells for calculating stuff. It's usually good with Python, so I might be wrong, but let's try it out, right? If I'm wrong, I'm just gonna fix it. Let's see. Oops. Let's see. Uh, oh, there you go. I was wrong. I don't think you need this. When it comes to calculators, Python is a great tool. But let's see. Uh. Yep, I am completely wrong. So you can use it for whatever reason you want. And I'm gonna get back to this. I should be remembering this. Let me see here. Oh, you know what? The best tool for every engineer. You know what it is? It's Google. How to add calculations um, variable in shell script. Calculate, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. And of course, okay, let's Stack Exchange, okay. There you go, blah, 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 blah. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's see how we'll go about this. Okay, let's try to put it in our, try it again. Again, I don't need to go this deep, but I really want to do this. I promise I'll be fast. Ah, there's a mistake there. Let's see how we do this here. Let's use our brains to show it. Okay. Okay. Oops. Is this gonna work? Nope, not working. Okay, I think I know what I made. What I did wrong. Whew. There you go. So there you go. All right. So once again, it should be the same concept for most script, but there you have it. So you can use it for so many things. You can use it for, and don't feel weird or scared or whatever to actually jump on Google to. And the more we go, the deeper we go about this, we're gonna talk about all these things here, right? We're gonna talk about all these things here. But when it comes to variables, I mean, once again, most of the times you'll use variables for anything. But when it comes to bash scripting, it's usually for either commands or actual strings, right? But you can always use it for math too, just like we just did right now, right? So now that you know enough about variables, right? Let's finish this with an actual script, right? And again, I'm not saying that the foundations uh, of bash scripting is just variables and echo commands. This is so much more than this, right? But again, this is the introduction to it, so we're not going to go too deep. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do an actual scenario, right? An actual script. Okay, so this script, let's go ahead and write a script that does this. So imagine you at work, right? And normally at work, if two people come to you, they say, "Hey," if someone comes to you and say, "Hey, we have three new employees. Can you go ahead and create an account for them in the system?" Say, "Okay, cool. What is their name?" Jack, Susie, and John. Okay, right? John. I usually do one by one because, yeah, I knew Rahab would have liked that. So John, okay, and we give it a first and last name, right? That's C. First name of John. Let's say his name is John Doe, right? We gave him a user ID, John, and then we put his first and last name, right? Boom, we created John, and we'll do the same thing for Jack, and we do the same thing for Susie over and over, right? But let's say every single day you have a new person coming into the company, and you're like, you know what? I really don't want to sit here and have to do this every single day, right? Let me just write a script where you guys are gonna create it. And they're like, we don't know Linux, we don't know how to create it. You're like, don't worry, you don't need to know Linux. All you need to do is run the script, and the script is gonna do it for you. You're like, okay, cool. So this is your job. This is the task that you need to do right now. Go. We need to create a script that's gonna create um, users automatically into our system, right? And that script, of course, needs to be interactive, right? It's because I don't know your name, I don't know your first and last name, right? So meaning the script is gonna ask the person, hey, what is your username? What user? So go ahead and create a username. You know, the same way when you go on any sort of a social media, for example, right? So let's say you go on Facebook, right? So let's say you go on Facebook or Meta, well, right? I think that's what it's called right here, right? And you want to create a new account. They're gonna ask you for your first and last name, right? And yeah, they're gonna ask you for your mobile or email, right? They're also gonna ask you for your password, right? And a whole bunch of stuff, right? So let's create a script that does this, basically. Okay? All right. So let's go back into our script and let's write a script that does that. Okay. All right. So first thing when you want to create someone's account, just like every other places in the world, right? Could ask for the person to create the account name or the username, right? All right, so let's ask this person to do it. Oops. Say echo, enter a username. Username. Boom. We tell him to enter a username. Boom. Okay. So now the question you might have is how do we make this interactive? Enter a username. How is he gonna enter it, right? And this is when I introduce to you the read command. So read is that thing that you will use to allow people to answer that question, right? And that answer can be inputted into a variable. You see what I'm saying? So for example, we say enter username. Since username is a variable, meaning something that can uh, that has a value added to it, right? You might be wondering, well, let's go ahead and declare the username variable right here, right? But the question I'm gonna have for you is, we don't know the username. That's the reason why we're asking. If you knew the username, we wouldn't be asking, right? So when you say read, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it username. You can call it. Let's go ahead and just call it username, right? Username. So when that person is gonna answer this question, that answer, right, is gonna become the value of username. So username is like a variable right now that has no value. It's empty until that person answers the question. Okay, and I can show it to you. You remember earlier I showed you how to call a variable, right? So say, okay, I see your username is, oops, you remember how we call the variable, right? Dollar sign and then the variable name, right? Okay, again, remember, we don't know the username, right? Boom. Okay, let's run it. Enter your username. I say, Jack. Okay, I see your username is Jack. So you see that what happened? The value of username is the input that the person running the script put here, right? So that's pretty much the job of a read command. It allows the script to be interactive. It gives a chance for the user to input something, and then that input becomes the value of the variable that is right next to read. Okay? All right. So the first step, as we ask the person for a username, he gives us his username, right? But remember, the command to create a user is a bunch of stuff. You say, remember the command is user add, right? And then you put the username here, right? So user add, we say username. So remember, we just dollar sign username, meaning whatever's going to be here is going to be the value that the person inputted on the CLI, right? But again, on that, the command for to create an account is not just the account username, it's also the first and last name, right? So that's C, and then remember, open the double quotes to put the first and last name. So what does that mean? We need to ask him what is first and last name. Ask him or her what is him or her last name, right? Say echo, enter your username. He puts his username. Let's make it look or feel professional, right? Let's say sleep for 30 seconds, right? Let's act as if it's actually thinking in the background, but it's not, right? So sleep for 30 seconds, right? And then we want it to clear, so it clear on the screen, right? And then say enter your first and last name. Oops. First and last name. Right? Now we give him a chance to answer. So read. Let's call this first last. Yeah, let's call this first last. Right? Boom. Now we have enough information to create um, the user. We have a username and we have a first and last name. Okay, let's call first last. Right? Okay. But now, what else do we have when we create an account? Okay, we get as our mobile number. In this case, this is a Linux server. We don't need that, right? And then, of course, if you're running a website, right? So you have a web server, you might ask this for your database situation, right? But let's make it simpler here, right? So the next big important thing here is the password, right? Of course, if you know anything, if you know Linux, you know the command to create a password, right? So we just go ahead and say password. What? Do we really need to specify the a how's it called? A variable? Of course we do. Because remember, to create a password for a user that already exists is pass and then the name of the username. right? So in this case, the username is going to be whatever input has been put when the person answered this question, right? So all we need to do, since we don't know, we just call the variable username, right? And it's going to do the work, okay? All right. So, and again, you can put a bunch of slips and clear command here. It's up to you, right? At the end of the day, as long as it does it, right? Okay. So, so now after it does it, let's make it real clean. So let's clear the screen. Let's have it clear the screen, and then let's go ahead and display the username and first and last name, right? Let's make it nice, right? Say great. Let's say your username is, right? Whatever he created his username to be is just gonna show up here. And you can have another echo command here, or you can just use by putting -e and use a vertical arguments here, right? We can do that, but let's make it as simple as possible. Your username is, and then let's make a space in between, right? Your first and last name is, right? And then first last. Okay, of course we don't know his password, right? Nobody can know his password. All right, boom. And again, remember, the password command is an interactive command. It's gonna ask him, it's gonna give him a chance to input it. So we don't need to put read and whatever here, right? If you know the password command, you know it's an interactive command, right? Okay, this looks clean enough. Let's save this and let's run back there. Boom, enter your username, Vanille21. Okay, enter your first and last name, Vanille Siwe. Change password is, so remember the password command always says this. Changing your password is not actually changing anything, right? It's just how the password command interacts, right? So we create a password here. Oops, apparently didn't like this that password. Okay, the password apparently wasn't created. We can run the thing again. Apparently, because you know password you have to have at least one uppercase, at least one lowercase, and numbers and the sign or whatnot, right? But as you can see, the script ran perfectly. Your username is right. Your first and last name right. Okay, so we did it. Congratulations, you just wrote your first Bash script. Congrats. You can get a fist. Yeah. So we just wrote our first script. We went ahead and so meaning anyone in the company that needs to create a user can just come and run the script. They don't need to call us anymore. Okay. All right. So this will be it for this video. Um, on the next one, what we're gonna do is so keep this script. Okay. Keep the script. Do not delete this. We're gonna go and follow a specific storyline, right? A specific situation at work to learn this thing, right? I'm not gonna show you the. I mean, let me just show you. It's the reason why I don't want to show this yet because I have to like tell you a little bit about what GitHub is, and I don't want to make this video too long. So just keep that script, and then on the next video, on the next session, we're just gonna make it bigger so it's gonna be one big project, right? And the deeper we get into learning Linux stuff, we're just gonna make it more and more advanced, right? So we're going from beginner to advanced level here with one big script, one situation, right? We're just gonna make it more and more complicated over and over, and then you're gonna learn more and more things, right? Okay, well, for today, this will be it. I hope you learned a lot, and you have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. Bye. Happy learning.